The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 206.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today we have Jeff Hunt, author of The Website Investor, the guide to buying an online website business for passive income. I know this is a little bit different of an episode, but every once in a while, if you remember a couple episodes back too, we had a real estate investor come on, and as entrepreneurs, I know you might be looking for a way to diversify or a way to make passive income on the outside. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, you're just flat out bored and looking for the next venture. So this is one of the reasons why we wanted to book Jeff on to come on and talk about website investing. And I think passive income always makes an entrepreneur's ears perk up. So without further ado, let's bring on Jeff. Welcome, Jeff. And thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
It's my pleasure, Wade.
Before we take a deep dive into your book, The Website Investor, will you take just a moment to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you personally.
Sure. I worked for many years in the middle management in IBM, and we had achieved most of our career goals. I was running a pretty large organization in IBM, had a big budget, and we felt like we just wanted to give back some of the blessing we had received. So our family, with our 4 kids, we sold everything we had. We packed up and we moved overseas to a Western Asian country. We served there for about 7 years. And the kids grew up and it was time to come home. And when I got home, we needed income. And I didn't feel like I could return to the corporate world very easily with that 7-year gap on my resume. And I didn't really have the cash to buy into a big business or something like a McDonald's that might cost me $1.5 million or something like that, and not a lot of time to start a business from scratch. So I started buying websites, and I've since bought about 300 income-generating websites, and I'm an advisor for online business acquisitions for a company called Cloud Income Properties on the side. That's just a little bit about my background.
Excellent. Well, first off, thank you for sharing that. And now let's dive into this book, The Website Investor, the guide to buying an online website business for passive income, which was just made available for purchase actually today, date of recording. By the time this actually gets launched, it'll have been out for a week or two. So the book just came out and the Kindle version is available as well. And Jeff, we're going to move quickly, but our whole goal here today is to cover the top questions that our reader or our listener / future reader would like to get answered. And that first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing The Website Investor?
Well, I meet a lot of people who would be better off buying in rather than starting a business from scratch. I go to conferences and people are really attracted to the online business space because of the flexibility that it offers and the idea of making an extra income or perhaps replacing a job. And so they're focused on starting a business from scratch. And of course, the business failure rate, as you know, is really high. And what most people don't realize is online business failure rate is even higher than offline, just because people don't invest themselves into it as much. And so the inspiration for my book is introducing all of these people who are interested in a business to this idea of buying a website. And there's a lot of important reasons why buying a website is a great business. Websites don't have the assets, fixed asset costs that most businesses do, so they're much more profitable and easier to get into. So a lot of it is to help people. The other thing is to help myself, because the more people who are aware of this possibility, the more websites come out of the woodwork that are for sale that I can buy and add to my portfolio.
That's huge. So what makes your book different from others regarding the same topic?
Well, in popular culture today, there's shows like Shark Tank, which I love, and The Profit, and a lot of people really interested in this idea of entrepreneurship and starting their own thing, creating their own product. And because of that, lots of books are coming out on those themes. But literally, there are no books about buying online businesses. And that's really a shame. And so my book teaches people exactly how to do that, what the steps are, and why buying an online business is a really good alternative to either starting from scratch or buying into a traditional brick and mortar business.
Jeff, how did you design the book to be read? Is this something that a reader can jump in, jump out based on the information they need at that moment? Or did you really design it to be read from front to back?
Well, as you know very well, people use information in different ways. I had a lawyer call me just the other day. He said, I bought the Kindle version of your book, read it on the plane on my trip, and he read the whole thing from cover to cover. On the other hand, I regularly hear from people, like one work-at-home mom told me that she had read the first quarter of the book, and then she was actually taking action steps to get started, looking for a website to buy, and then she was going to continue to read through the book as she actually took action on it. And so a lot of people do that. They'll read through the whole thing, then they'll go back and use it as a reference. But the important thing is that, like any good book, that you stop and ponder what it's saying and how it applies to you, and then take action on it. And that book really is built to be able to do that well.
Perfect. So, Jeff, this is my favorite part of the entire interview. This is where I get to hand over the mic and really ask you to take the next 5 to 8 minutes to break down in the best way that you can your book for the future reader. So we take the next couple of minutes and do that?
Sure. Well, the first thing about my book is stories. I have a number of case studies that are essentially stories of acquisitions that I've made, and they range everything from magician sites to criminals to furniture sales online to health sites, nursing sites. There's just a broad range of stories, and those stories are there because it really is helpful for people to get an idea of, well, if I were to purchase a website, what would it look like? What websites are available, and what does the day-to-day look like, and how much money can I make from them, and is it hard? Is it easy? Is it risky? And so the stories really help people get into that. And then the second thing, the book is all about process. The book is a comprehensive guide on how to do it. And it really follows the same kind of process you would use in making any kind of significant purchase, whether it was a cell phone or a house or real estate or anything. It starts with, where do you buy? Where are websites actually sold? How do you search website listings? And then how do you narrow down those listings to something that you would be interested in? So it starts at the beginning, helping people find where those opportunities are. And then it moves into how to evaluate. So when you have some opportunities that look interesting to you, how do you go about determining whether the revenue is good and the expenses are correct and the traffic is either there or not there? And how do you explain peaks in the traffic and dips in the traffic and those kind of things? And then what do you look for in terms of the content of the website that you're buying, or the product, the quality of the products that they sell? And how do you evaluate whether there's opportunities? The difference between a good investor and a great investor is that great investors have a nose for how they can quickly improve the profitability of their investment. If you think about real estate investors, the great real estate investors can look around and he sees lots of opportunity, whereas less experienced people don't. So that's part of the book as well. Then after you've picked a few that you want to evaluate, then you need to dig in and figure out how much they're worth. So the book has a really nice chapter on how to value and put a price tag on a website to give you an idea of what you should pay. And that's all about understanding the risk and stability of the website business, and then also about what kind of opportunities there might be to change a few things to really improve the income stream. And there are chapters on negotiation, because many website purchases are negotiated. They don't have a hard and fixed price. Some of them are in auction format. Some of them are just private deals. And then how do you transfer the website from the seller to the buyer and make sure that everybody is taken care of and everybody is protected? In the website business, it's kind of like real estate. We use something called escrow.com. So there's a third party who keeps the money and makes sure that the buyer gets everything the seller promised before they release the money. So there's an explanation about how that works. And then when the buyer actually has the website, it's in their name and they're the new owner of the business. How do you manage that website profitably? Where do you find help if there's some aspect that you know nothing about? And quite frankly, lots of people don't have any technical skills and have very limited even interest in having technical skills, and yet they're still able to buy websites because there's lots of help out there for low cost in the form of freelancers and outsourcing process. And in fact, similar to real estate, once again, there are even services that will manage your website property for you, if you will, just as if you were buying a condo or something and you wanted to hire a rental management company because you didn't want to manage your condo yourself. You can do the same thing even with a website. And because of that, there are other companies today that, or rather other kinds of investors, people who've traditionally just put their money in stocks or other kinds of financial instruments, who now are turning to websites as a way to get into higher profit, but without having to actually manage an online business. So that's kind of an exciting thing that's happened that's covered in the book. And then lots of other topics like buying international websites, and do you actually need to organize yourself as a business, and how to sell a website if you choose to do that. This isn't a book about flipping websites per se. I'm more of a buy and hold kind of guy. But we also have a chapter on how to sell when and if you want to do that. And then this topic of apps versus websites, and whether you should buy an app. So those are all of the kinds of topics. And as people read through the book, they'll really get the idea that buying in to a website business versus starting from scratch is just a whole lot easier. You don't have to wear all of the hats. You don't have to be a designer and a product creator and a search engine optimization specialist and a marketer and a product deliverer and all of those hats that one has to wear, as you well know, as an entrepreneur when you're starting a business from scratch. Instead, you can pick up a working business and learn from something that's working as opposed to learning from something that doesn't exist. So buying in, that's a clear theme in this book, is that it's easier, certainly faster when you buy in, and it's a lot less risky because you're already picking up a business that has collected a traffic and visitors and customers, and you don't have to build all of that up over time. So the book has stories mixed in, it has the process, and that's really the thrust of it. It's really easy to explain why this is a good thing for entrepreneurs, and then the book takes you through from the beginning to the end on how you can actually participate and do that once you're convinced of the idea.
So Jeff, your book has a ton of great content and context, and thank you for taking us through it. But for someone who's brand new, maybe on here, an entrepreneur who's listening right now, they're looking to diversify and they like what you're saying, but it can seem a little overwhelming on, where do I start? So this next question is very relevant that I'm asking, if the reader could only take away one concept, one principle, one action item out of your entire book and everything you just took the time to discuss with us, what would you want that to be?
Well, I mentioned I come from IBM, and in corporate America, in any enterprise of any size, there is always a buy versus build decision, buy versus build. So you have to decide if you want to introduce a new product line, whether you're going to buy that product line or those manufacturing facilities or that software or even employees from someplace, or are you going to start from scratch and build it from scratch? And that the key principle in the book is that investing is better than inventing in almost every case. And as I said earlier, it's faster, easier, and more certain. But that's the principle, and the action item associated with it is get out there and start looking and educate yourself on what's available. And whether you even buy the first website or not, your eyes will be opened and your business acumen will be improved just by looking at all of the different websites and how they make money.
Jeff, do you have a favorite quote from your book? And will you take a second, something that you wrote, and will you take a second to explain what it means to you?
Yeah. You know, I think my favorite quote in the book is be the nicest buyer. There's that might sound funny or obvious, but there's this weird paradigm, in Western countries, that maybe the whole world, that the guy who is spending the money somehow has to be, or has the right to be, rude and obnoxious and demanding, and the person who's the seller in the transaction has to be very polite and impatient with the buyer and those things. And what I have found over and over and over again is that if you are a kind and understanding buyer, that you can win the day. I've had a number of businesses sold to me where I wasn't the highest bidder necessarily, but the seller just liked me because I treated them respectfully and kindly. And so I got the business. So be the nice buyer is the quote.
What's the number one question that you get, Jeff, from people who know your expertise and are trying to figure out more how they can jump in?
Well, they start with the basic question of where do I find websites to buy? And there are website brokerages, much like there are business brokerages that have been around forever. There are website marketplaces like flippa.com. So that's really the most common question, is how do you do that? Of course, everyone's kind of surprised. They never heard of anyone who makes a living actually buying websites, but that's beginning to change. We're kind of on the front end of that.
You mentioned this a little bit, but you said that there's a very small percentage of businesses that make it, and then there's even a smaller amount of online businesses that make it. Will you go into a little bit deeper of why you think that is?
Yeah, it's really pretty simple. The answer is that just about anybody can open a website business. There's a difference between me starting a flower shop on the corner and renting out a facility and buying all the fixtures and buying the inventory and starting that business, and me opening an online flower web shop. I can open that online business really in a matter of a few weeks and begin to attract customers. So whereas the physical business would take a lot more time and a lot more money. And so as a result of that, a lot of people start websites and other kinds of online money-making initiatives, and then they haven't invested very much in it, and so it's much easier for them to just give up on it, and that's why the failure rate for online business is a lot higher. But in what we do as website investors, we can avoid those high failure rates because we survey the whole field of what's available, what's for sale, and we only look at the things that have been successful, that have been around for a while, that have actually generated visitors and traffic and sales, and we focus on buying those.
So Jeff, you've done a great job of giving us a recap of your book, a little bit of the background and the purpose. And now we're going to ask you for a recommendation. Not any recommendation, but the book recommendation. So if there's only one book you could recommend, it can be business, could be fiction, nonfiction, doesn't matter. But based on the way that it's impacted your life, created a lifestyle or a paradigm shift, which book would you suggest to the listener?
The book I have in mind is one that isn't too familiar to most people. It's called Managing, by a guy named Harold Janine, who ran the ITT company. It was a telephone company, and then it grew to a large international conglomerate by buying a lot of other disparate businesses, very, very different kinds of businesses. And I love that book because Janine really just explains that it's all about process. Even though these businesses that they acquired and managed were very different business models, because he had a consistent process for managing each of the businesses that he ran, he was very successful with it. So I think that might be the biggest impact to me. That book might be a little bit hard for our listeners to find because I'm not certain it's still in print, but I think you can find parts of it at least on Amazon and elsewhere.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that recommendation. And Jeff, before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to not only get more information on you, but also get more information on your book, The Website Investor?
Sure. My personal website is called heckyeah.org. That's HECKYEAH.org, heckyeah.org. And there's information on website investing, on my books, and several other topics for entrepreneurs. And you can, of course, search for the website Investor by Jeff Hunt in Google, and you'll see a number of options for actually finding the book, and hopefully you'll see it in a bookstore near you very soon as it's rolling out this month.
Perfect. Well, Jeff, again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your book with us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. My pleasure to be with you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks again for listening in today. If you would like more information on Jeff or his book, The Website Investor, check out the show notes at theelpodcast.com.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to theelpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's theelpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.